A famous TV presenter was shot dead right outside her home in broad daylight on a busy street in London. At that time, no one could have imagined that her tragic death would spark one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the United Kingdom, lasting for more than 2 decades. Jill Dando, a name loved by millions, became the focus of an investigation where, even today, the truth remains a question mark. What really happened on that fateful morning? And why does her death continue to be an unsolved mystery? What was the killer's true motive? Was this merely a random attack, or are there darker secrets hidden behind it? Over the years, many suspicious theories have been proposed, from connections to the criminal world to complex conspiracies that have never been disclosed. So, what really happened on that day? Join us as we explore the details and mysteries surrounding this case in the video right after this to better understand the mysterious death that has haunted the United Kingdom for more than 2 decades. Jill Dando, one of the most famous television presenters in the United Kingdom, became a symbol of grace and talent in the entertainment broadcasting industry. Born on November 9, 1961, in Weston-super-Mare, she grew up in a family with a strong tradition in journalism. Jill Dando's father and brother worked at the weekly newspaper The Weston and Somerset Mercury, which nurtured her passion for media from a young age. With her speaking ability and natural confidence, Dando quickly made a mark at the BBC, where she hosted many successful and popular programs such as Crime Watch and various entertainment shows. However, her life and promising career were ruthlessly cut short on April 26, 1999, when she became the victim of an unsolved assassination. Despite relentless efforts, investigators have been unable to identify the perpetrator, and the mysteries surrounding Dando's death have continued to grow thicker. Many theories have been proposed, ranging from emotional relationships to grudges within the criminal world, and even connections to international political conflicts. Her death shocked the British media industry and left many unanswered questions that persist to this day. The investigation has continued without pause, but investigators in the United Kingdom have still been unable to uncover the truth behind the assassination to bring the perpetrator to trial. The mysteries and theories surrounding this crime continue to multiply, with even theories related to the war in Yugoslavia. Dando was born into a family with a tradition of being journalists, with her father and brother working at the weekly newspaper The Weston Somerset Mercury. After 5 years collaborating with this very newspaper, she moved to the BBC's broadcasting department, first in Devon and then to the Southwest branch. Her talent at the age of 24 was quickly recognized, leading to invitations to participate in other popular television programs. By 1988, Dando made her first appearance on national television. Gradually, she became more famous and refined by hosting morning entertainment shows, daytime and evening news programs, the travel show Holiday, and many other entertainment programs. In less than 10 years, Dando had become a highly respected presenter with a large fan base across the United Kingdom. Her talent earned her the title of Personality of the Year from the BBC in 1997. According to the plan, on May 9, 1999, Dando was scheduled to co-host the British Academy of Film and Television Arts Awards. However, the event took place without her presence and was hosted solely by writer Michael Parkinson, who asked everyone to observe a minute of silence in memory of Dando. One of BBC's most beloved television projects for Dando was the reality show Crime Watch, a program focused on unsolved cases. In the show, reporters would summarize mysterious, unsolved cases to draw public attention and encourage the participation of new witnesses to assist the police in identifying the perpetrators. In the few years before her sudden passing, Dando took on a role considered one of a kind on this show. She helped many victims recover lost property that was retrieved by the police through crime-fighting campaigns. Dando's final appearance on Crime Watch, sadly, was as a murdered victim. Her colleagues attempted to recreate the entire timeline of the case in the hope that the police and the public could help find the perpetrator. However, these efforts are still seen as futile with no response to this day. At noon on April 26, 1999, Dando returned to her home in Fulham, London. At around 11:30 a.m., as she stood at her front door, checking her bag for her keys, an unknown man suddenly appeared beside her and pushed her to the ground. He pressed a handgun to her left temple and pulled the trigger. According to her neighbor Richard Hughes, he heard a woman scream at that time. When he looked out the window, he saw a tall, white man, around 40 years old, walking away from the TV presenter's house. About 15 minutes after the tragedy, neighbor Helen Doble passed by the door, saw Dando's bloodied body, and immediately called the police. The victim was rushed to Charing Cross Hospital, where doctors officially pronounced her dead half an hour later. The sudden death of a beloved television star shocked the entire United Kingdom. Initially, the Kensington police were responsible for investigating the case before Scotland Yard took over the investigation 2 weeks later. The agency's leadership appointed a team of senior investigators as part of a large-scale operation called Oxborough to find the killer. The police thoroughly examined Dando's personal relationships, read her letters and diaries, and conducted numerous interviews with those connected to her in an effort to trace the clues in this tragic case. According to the authorities, the most likely theory put forward was that of a jealous admirer or a former lover seeking revenge over a personal relationship. This theory was closely related to Dando's recent engagement, as in early 1999, she and her boyfriend Alan Farthing had just gotten engaged and set their wedding date for September of that year. As a famous TV presenter, Dando naturally had many admirers, including numerous men who were infatuated with her. According to her brother, there had been a few obsessive fans who harassed her, even going to great lengths to pursue her. However, after reviewing all contacts and phone records, it was clear that Dando and Farthing were still very much in love. She had even moved in with her fiancé at his house in Chiswick and placed an advertisement to sell her home in Fulham. Investigators also ruled out the theory that the assassin mistakenly confused Dando with another woman. The female journalist was murdered right in front of her own home, with the only trace before the assassination being her stop at a shopping center. A few days after the tragedy, the police released a composite sketch of the suspect. Over the next 6 months, investigators questioned more than 2,500 different individuals. Crime Watch actively assisted in the investigation of Dando's case, and in May of that year alone, the BBC newsroom received over 500 phone calls from people claiming to be witnesses, offering information to aid in the investigation. Additionally, the Sun newspaper announced a reward of £100,000 for any information leading to solving the case and finding the perpetrator. Later, this reward was increased by 2.5 times. One year after Dando's tragic death, in the early hours of May 25, 2000, police raided the home of an unemployed man named Barry George. He was swiftly arrested and brought in for questioning. Just 48 hours later, George was formally charged with Dando's murder and remanded in custody, with his right to bail being denied. According to British media, George was known to suffer from paranoia. From a young age, he was obsessed with becoming a police officer, but his efforts all ended in failure. He later obtained a fake police ID and badge, which led to his arrest and a fine. In the years that followed, George continued to impersonate various celebrities, only to be exposed each time. In the early 1980s, George made an outlandish claim of being a renowned stuntman, attempting to convince the management of Derby Stadium to host a spectacular show where he would leap over several double-decker buses on roller skates. Not stopping there, he later went on to pose as a British karate champion, hoping to see his name splashed across the front pages of popular newspapers. In addition to his impersonation antics, George also has a dark history of criminal behavior. He faces multiple arrests for assault, rape, and attempted rape. More than a dozen women reported being harassed by him, some even being followed home as he tried to find out their addresses. His violent tendencies were not limited to strangers. His wife, subjected to relentless abuse, divorced him just 3 months after their wedding when she could no longer tolerate his personality. The police found stacks of photos in George's possession, along with descriptions of the women's personalities, addresses, and vehicle numbers. Among them were many photos of famous models. The investigation also revealed that in January 1983, he had dressed in a military uniform and, armed with a knife, snuck into Kensington Palace, where the British royal family lives. During George's trial for the murder of Dando, psychological experts confirmed that he suffered from several personality disorders. In 2001, the jury found him guilty, sentencing him to life in prison. A year later, his family filed an appeal, desperately hoping to overturn the verdict. However, the court swiftly dismissed the appeal, and George remained behind bars, serving out his life sentence. 5 years later, George's legal team filed a motion to reconsider his sentence, bolstered by a series of mental health records. Many medical experts weighed in, arguing that George's mental disorder had significantly reduced his ability to commit such heinous acts. This raises the question, can a person with such unstable mental problems really be responsible for a crime? It was at this point that the media began to reassess the unconvincing nature of the evidence presented in court. The only substantial piece of evidence that investigators relied on was a small trace of gunpowder found in George's coat pocket. This evidence could very well have been a coincidence, perhaps appearing during the reconstruction of the crime scene. Additionally, police based their case on the testimonies of a few witnesses who frequently observed George loitering near Dando's neighborhood where she lived. It's likely that this was merely coincidental, given that the suspect lived close by. On August 1, 2008, the Central Criminal Court declared George innocent. Despite his efforts to claim compensation for wrongful conviction, he gained nothing in return. At first, the police suspected that Dando had been shot by a professional assassin. However, they later abandoned this theory, as it seemed the killer had no prior knowledge of her unexpected return to her home in Fulham. The forensic experts at the time also concluded that Dando had been shot with an old, modified gun. This led the investigators to focus on a random killer, possibly someone with mental health issues. It was this criminal profile that directed them to George and subsequently resulted in a wrongful life sentence for him. After the conviction was overturned, the police returned to their initial hypothesis. They assessed that the perpetrator had quite a good skill set based on the examination of the victim's body and the crime scene. The gun appeared to be equipped with a silencer, and the victim was positioned in a way that minimized blood loss. Thus, the investigation focused on two directions: conflicts in Yugoslavia and the criminal underworld. With her participation in the Crime Watch program, many people believed that the presenter had inadvertently made quite a few enemies within the criminal underworld. Due to the outcomes of her show, it's possible that several criminals were imprisoned because of the program's popularity at that time. According to Waynard, there was one individual who received a life sentence for murder, and he might very well be the one involved in Dando's murder case. According to this person's claims, the Irish Republican Army is responsible for Dando's death. In 2017, a masked assassin told investigative journalist Mark Williams Thomas that he knew the identity of Dando's killer but chose to remain silent due to fears of retaliation and potential assassination. The theory connecting the case to the war in Yugoslavia was also mentioned. For instance, during George's trial, some lawyers openly proposed the hypothesis that Dando's death was linked to Slobodan Milosevic. The problem was that just a few months before Dando's death, NATO's Air Force had launched a bombing campaign across Yugoslavia, making it impossible for anyone to investigate that direction, and the court completely dismissed this line of inquiry. Specifically, 3 days before the incident, British bombers attacked a television station in Serbia, killing 16 employees. The day after Dando's death, an anonymous caller with an Eastern European accent contacted the BBC, stating that Dando had been killed in retaliation for that bloody bombing. The caller also warned that the second person on the list could very well be Tony Hall, one of the executive directors of the BBC. In 2012, Branka Prpa, the widow of the famous Serbian journalist Slavko Kuruvica, claimed that Dando was killed due to her support for the Albanian forces in Kosovo. She believed that the deaths of her husband and the female MC were connected. A striking coincidence in both cases is that Kuruvica was also shot dead in his home in Belgrade just 15 days before Dando's passing. Several other anonymous sources believe that Dando was indeed a victim of revenge, but in a different way. A few years after the case, it was revealed that the female MC had come up with a plan to expose several sexual scandals involving very famous individuals with significant influence in the media. According to this theory, the famous individuals she intends to expose may already know about the investigation she is about to broadcast on Crime Watch. One of her colleagues believes that the names revealed on Crime Watch will create a big buzz in the community because these characters are very prominent and influential. It's very possible that information about that scenario was leaked and reached the ears of those on the list, causing them to take action before it aired, ultimately leading to her tragic and unexpected death. In her diary, Dando wrote about her dream that by the year 2000, she not only hoped to achieve great success in her career, but also to start a family. Dando had already scheduled her wedding for September 25, 1999, but this tragedy forever prevented that joyous day from taking place. Now, the only remaining hope for Dando's loved ones is to find her killer and ensure that justice is served, holding the culprit accountable for their crime. The murder of the famous MC Jill Dando has left many unanswered questions, and even after more than 20 years, the mystery surrounding her death continues to haunt and sadden many. A talented presenter with a life at the pinnacle of a career that many could only dream of, suddenly cut short in the most unexpected way. Her tragic end has sparked a series of theories ranging from love, crime, to even international conflict. Will the truth remain forever buried, or will justice one day come to light? Share your thoughts on this case in the comments below. Thank you for watching the video. If you want to learn more about other mysterious cases, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and share the video so we can continue exploring other strange, unsolved cases together. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.